Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're here at the warehouse where you know I keep all my most prized and beloved possessions. I'm here almost every day. Love to come here. It's always the best part of my day. Unfortunately, today is not one of those days. It's probably the only time I've ever been here, and it's actually a very, very sad day. 3 of my most prized possessions will be gone in 48 hours from now. I love each one of these cars very, very much. They all mean a lot to me. And I figured the best thing I could do to pay homage to these cars, how much they've meant to me, the impact they made on my life, is to share with you and talk a little bit about each car, give it its due, talk about why I bought it, why I fell in love with it, and give just an overall view of the car and what it means to me. We'll start with the 1996 Porsche Turbo S. As you guys may know, this was the very first time that Porsche ever used a twin turbo system on their V6 engines. And it's also a very, very special car because it's the last of the air-cooled Porsche 911s. The 993 turbos were produced from 1995 to 1998. Mine happens to be in an extraordinarily rare color, blue iris metallic. In fact, the dealership that services the car, that always makes sure it's in tip-top shape for me, the service manager's worked there for 12 years. He said he's never seen one in this color. And the last time they serviced the car, they told me, whatever you do not ever sell that car. And here we are. Unfortunately, that day is actually happening. I was not in the market for this car. I actually don't know older Porsches as well as I do a lot of the other exotics, specifically Ferrari and Lamborghini, but Porsche makes an incredible car. No one could ever question the absolute durability, reliability, and overall performance of the 911. It's the sports car that does everything, right? It's comfortable, it's fast, they're reliable. You can do launch control in these cars. You can launch that car 50 times and it will not break. Drive it home from the track, and the car is just as reliable the next day for you to probably daily use that car. I've driven this 911 many, many times. I use it to go visit one of my kids in college. It's about a 3-hour drive away. It's my favorite car to drive on the highway. It's fast as hell. It's incredibly comfortable. How often do you get a car with that kind of performance? It actually has cruise control, comfortable ride, and does everything you need it to do. And hey, even has cup holders, right? Ferrari and Lamborghini rarely ever put cup holders in their cars, but on a 3-hour drive to see a college kid, you want a cup holder. But it's a great car. It's an incredible part of my collection. Like I said, I wasn't even in the market for this car. I was looking at older and older 911s as I've gotten more and more in love with the brand, and I got to know more and more about these cars. This car just happened to come up from a buddy of mine who actually had the car, was looking to get rid of it. He was just trying to get into actually newer stuff, and I was getting into more and more older stuff. So it made kind of a fun little deal. I really didn't know what to think about the car when I first got it. Like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I didn't even know that was the end of the air-cooled cars whenever I agreed to buy this car. He just brought it by the house. I looked at it, I thought it was absolutely stunningly beautiful. Car was in good shape, not perfect shape. Those of you that know me and know how I manage my car collection, I'm incredibly OCD about my cars. Good is not good enough. I go overboard. I overspend on all these cars to make them absolutely perfect because that's the way that I enjoy them, right? So I got this car and fell in love with it. I just started driving the car and it just did everything great. It's fast when you want it to be, practical when you want it to be, comfortable when you want it to be, sporty when you want it to be. It literally does everything incredibly well. There's no such thing as a day where you ever drive a 911 and you can't be in a good mood. And this car is no exception, but you add to it that it's a 1996, 26-year-old car. It brings a different element of character when you drive these older cars. The new cars are so good. They're so perfected that they almost get to a point where almost anyone could drive them. I love the cars that have character. They have an individualism to them. You still have to be a driver to drive some of those cars. You've got to put in your driver's skills to get the most out of those cars. And those to me are the ones that are the most rewarding. No, the 1996 911 Turbo is nowhere near as fast as the newest 992 Turbo S is, right? Not even close. But what's most fun to drive? I would argue, give me some of the older cars, more character, manual stick shift, and that to me is gonna be more fun to drive. So I really enjoyed this car. As I continue to drive it, I continue to fall in love with it more and more and more. Eventually I decided this car is gonna be a permanent part of my collection. So I did what I usually do with all these cars. I absolutely go overboard with it. Brand new tires. I had the dealership go through the engine. We fixed every little thing that needed to be done on it. Many things that weren't even really an issue. If you're a 911 fan, they all quote sweat. That is the manufacturer's terminology. I typically call those leaks, but I was educated that the older cars, some of that sweating is actually a little bit normal. It's another characteristic of the car. Had a couple little things that have been done to it over the years that weren't quite original OEM spec. I took the car back completely 100% to OEM spec, all the way down to even getting rid of the head unit that was in the car for the stereo system, as everybody did back then. If you had a 911 back then, you probably did the same. You probably had the Alpine or Pioneer head unit installed in the system, aftermarket speakers. We all did it, right? As a connoisseur, as I've gotten older with cars, I've grown to have a tremendous appreciation for cars that are truly 100% OEM. Had a paint correction done on the car, ceramic coating done on the car, a couple little areas on the interior, just like side bolster wear that every car gets, had it perfected. And I assure you, this car is in as good a condition today as it was 26 years ago when it rolled off the assembly line. And so it is, like I said, a very, very sad day that I have to part with this car. I didn't go through all that effort because I ever thought I was going to sell the car. Clearly, I thought I was going to keep it as part of my permanent collection. But, you know, life takes you in different directions. You never know what lies ahead, and here we are. It's going. So that's one of the three. As I mentioned, there's 3 cars I'm having to let go. Even as I'm making this video and talking to you guys and sharing this with you, I'm biting my words here. It's so hard for me to come to grips with the fact that 48 hours from now, these cars will no longer be here. The next one needs no introduction. 2005 Porsche Carrera GT. Yes, it's in the launch spec, GT Silver, Ascot interior. This car is in such amazing shape. It still has the original luggage. I didn't even know this car came with luggage. Many people didn't realize that. This car comes with its own custom-made luggage specific for that car. The luggage is actually still wrapped in the original cellophane protective wrapping from the manufacturer, from Porsche Germany. It has literally never been opened. I bought the car with 2,100 miles on it. It was a crazy day. I had zero desire to go buy this car that day. I actually was going to look at a Porsche 997.2 GT3 RS. In my mind, I'd already purchased the car. It was just a matter of going to the dealership, doing what I do, haggle the hell out of them, right? And try to get the best price. They know me. They knew I was coming to buy the damn car, so I'm not really sure who's fooling who there. But it's a game that we play. I love the local dealership that I work with. They're great guys. We've got a great relationship. So I get there, get the car out. I'm inspecting it. I'm trying to find any little flaw I can to use it as negotiating leverage against the dealership, trying to get the best price. But again, we both knew the game. We both knew I was leaving with that car that day. So that was down the first floor. Upstairs in this particular dealership, Porsche dealership, is where they keep the really special stuff. I've learned over the years, do not go upstairs. There's always going to be something very special up there. For guys like me that have such a passion for cars, you have got to monitor and manage yourself. And as we're going through this car and we're going back and forth and I'm asking them to pull some service records on this car and everything else, I go upstairs. I made the cardinal mistake of going upstairs. It's one thing to see pictures of it, to watch videos of this car, to see it in the flesh, it took my breath away. I'll say it that way. I came up those stairs, the car sat there, and it just melted me in the knees. It's incredibly gorgeous. The car has an incredible presence just in and of itself. We all know the legend behind the car. It's obviously got a controversial past about the car. It's a lot to handle. As we all know, this car is completely 100% carbon fiber. So you take the engine out and the car weighs almost nothing. The engine originally was developed for IMSA racing. It never made its way into an IMSA race car because of rules and regulations changes just before Porsche was able to put it in there. It sat on the shelf for several years, the engine did. And finally, they decided to develop a car they could put this engine in. Everything that you've seen online with videos about this car, you've read magazine articles and reviews about this car, it is 100% true and then some. This car is one of those cars that you think you have an idea of what it's going to be like to drive it. And again, I'm a driver. Other than maybe a Bugatti or a Pagani. I've pretty much owned everything else out there, and I've driven everything else out there, including race cars on the racetrack. I own my own race car. We'll be talking more about that pretty soon. But to get into this car was an experience all to its own. As you guys know, it doesn't have a flywheel, so the way it revs extremely high, very, very quickly, 9,000 RPMs at the blip of a throttle, and then it drops very, very quickly. And that weight shift back and forth makes this a very tricky car to drive because, like I said, it's 100% carbon fiber. The only weight to the car is the engine. So whatever's happening with that engine, pitching up and down, back and forth with the weight shift as you're revving those RPMs up and down, that completely controls the weight shift of the car. Any of you guys that drive and drive very hard in corners, you know that getting in and out of a corner as fast as you possibly can and safely as you possibly can is all about weight distribution and weight management, right? So this car right here can really trick you. I'm sure many of you have seen the video online where, you know, our guy Jay Leno spun this thing 5 times at Talladega. And Jay went on camera and he talked about it. He said, hey, listen, that was my fault. The drivers told me going into that corner, I think he said it was gonna be about 120 or 130 miles an hour. We're all human beings. I too would want to lift off at that rate of speed going into a corner. They said, whatever you do, don't lift off. You're gonna shift the weight of that car going into that corner. He lifted off and the car went spinning. So it's an incredibly tricky car to drive. We all know that the poor tragedy of Paul Walker as well. And quite honestly, as you may or may not know, Paul Walker was not driving that car that day. So you can't look at it as that was an actor. The person that was actually driving the car, it was a very dear friend of his who was a professional race car driver. So even in the hands of professionals, people with far more race car driving experience than myself, this car has proven to be a very, very dangerous car to drive. To me, that's part of the excitement. I gotta be brutally honest. I'll never forget the very first time my wife and I took this car out for a drive. And of all the cars I've ever owned, this was the only one that my wife was not on board with me driving. I'm really fortunate that my wife shares my passion for cars, and she loves to see us acquire new things and new special cars that are near and dear to me, and she's always along for the ride, which is awesome. But this was the one time, quite honestly, she was pissed off. She was flat out pissed off at me for buying this car. I knew she was gonna be pissed off about me buying this car, hence I didn't tell her until the deal was done, and I was on my way home with the car because I didn't want to get in the shitter if the deal didn't go through. So there was no reason to get in trouble and not end up with the car. So once I knew we were getting the car, let her know, hey, this is what I did today. Yes, I went to go buy the 997.2 GT3 RS. That car's still at the dealership. We didn't buy it. We bought a Porsche Carrera GT. So we take it on the first drive, and there's this lunch spot. It's about an hour and 20 minutes away. The idea was to spend a good amount of time in the car, and I really wanted to start learning the feel of the car, characteristic of the car. Really, if you're a driver, you know what I'm really trying to figure out is where's this car break loose at? I want to know that point. This car does not have stability control or side slip control, and it's got a hint of traction control. I gotta be honest with you, there's a button there that says traction control. I've never actually seen it work. It's you, the throttle, the clutch, that engine, and that carbon fiber monocog. That's it. You either know how to handle this car or you don't. And the thing about this car, so we take it out on the drive, right? So we're driving out to this lunch spot. It's about an hour and 20 minutes away. And I can see where this car really sneaks up on a lot of people because as we talked about the 911, it does everything right. The Carrera GT, believe it or not, if you're not getting on it, it's a very comfortable car to drive. It shifts butter smooth. The gearbox is incredible on the car, but Porsche makes a great gearbox in every car that they put out, right? And yes, we all know it doesn't have the flywheel. Engaging in first gear is a little funky. I don't think, if you drive stick very much, I think 5 minutes you get it. Just let out on the clutch a little bit till you feel engaged the gear, and then off you're on your way. Shifting everything after that, it's just like driving anything else, but it's an incredible gearbox. So you drive this car, it's actually pretty comfortable to drive considering what it is. It does not drive with this wild, rambunctious, raucous ride. It actually rides rather comfortable for what it is. And so we're driving out there and I'm getting a little more comfortable with the car, starting to push it a little bit more, and we had 120, 130 miles an hour on a stretch of highway. And my wife's not really looking at me very much. She actually kind of refused to look at me. So I knew I was pushing the boundaries with how much latitude and grace she was going to continue to give me and how much more she was going to tolerate me driving like a hooligan with this car. So I continue to push a little bit more. We get out to the lunch spot. We're sitting there. And she's like, you haven't said a word. We've been sitting here 20 minutes. And I'll never forget. I look at her and I said, I think I've got the feel of this car. Right? So she looks at me, she raises the eyebrow, as she usually does, and she goes, okay. So on the way back, I drove the shit out of the Porsche Carrera GT. We get on a stretch of highway. We hit speeds of 170 miles an hour. I went through some corners. Now, they're corners. They're general S-curves. They're on a highway, right? But well into the triple digits in the speed. You really start feeling where the pitch point is of that car, where you can try to find the apexes. Place the car, it goes right where your eyes go. The car is so direct. It's so incredibly well engineered. And as long as you are really conscientious of coming into that corner correctly, hitting that apex, and managing the weight distribution, the car rewards you. So we're flying, and I never let up. I just kept going harder and harder and harder. My confidence with the car just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It was literally the most exhilarating drive I've ever had on public roads. So we exit off the freeway, we come into the red light, and I had to let go of the wheel, and my hands were shaking from the adrenaline rush of that car. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, but I look over at my wife and I said, I think I need a cigarette. Holy shit, that was amazing. That was the most incredible adrenaline rush drive on a public road I've ever had in my life. So the car is truly remarkable. Again, like I said earlier, you can look at the video, watch videos on the car, listen to me describe the drive of that car, read the car reviews. It doesn't do its justice. It's one of those things in life you just have to experience. This particular model, I bought it with 2,100 miles on it. There's not a scratch on the car. In fact, the entire car was paint corrected, 100% covered in PPF, ceramic coated on top of that. Needless to say, the car has lived a charmed life. It's been extraordinarily well taken care of. You know, now the car does now have 1,000 miles later on. I've owned the car for about a year and a half. It is incredibly hard to let this car go. My only hope is that there's another one near term down the road in my future. I don't know that I could live a very long period of time without a Carrera GT in my life. The third one, wow. Those of you that know me that I love a lot of brands, but Ferrari is where my passion's at. And I own a lot of Ferraris, and we're gonna be sharing a lot of those cars with you guys. Unfortunately, this is one that I've gotta let go before I really get a chance to share with you and do a drive for you. But this is the 2021 Ferrari 812 GTS. You know much about Ferrari, you know that that was the first time in 50 years that Ferrari made a production convertible V12. Yes, there was the F50, there was the 599 SA. Those were kind of one-off limited edition cars. I mean, it was only 349 Ferrari F50s. There was 80 of the Ferrari 599 SA, the Speciale Apertus. And then they come along, and I think this car was launched in 20 or 21. I think it was 2020. Launched this car. For the first time in 50 years, a production convertible, hardtop convertible, Ferrari with a V12 in it. The V12, as we know, is the heart and soul of every Ferrari. That's where Enzo Ferrari cut his teeth. He always said, you know, that the V12 was the way to go. There's no replacement for displacement, and it was the V12 he was talking about. And we were fortunate enough to get an allocation. My wife and I, we personally designed this car. We laid out, we chose the leather, we chose the trim, we chose the paint. In fact, every Ferrari is, well, not every, but the vast majority of them are Rosso Corsa red. And we've had so many Rosso Corsa Ferraris. This was such a special car that I was not gonna do in that red, so we chose a different shade of red for this car with a metallic paint. So it's a little bit deeper, a little bit richer. It's Rosso Corsa Metallizzato, as the Italians like to call it. But it's sitting it next to a regular Rosso Corsa car, it's stunningly beautiful. It's deeper, it's richer, the metallic paint just pops. The interior, we went with incredible beige, Daytona seats, red inserts, red piping, red stitching, carbon fiber everywhere. I don't think there was a box that offered carbon fiber options that we didn't check on this car. Car's loaded with options. And we did that because a convertible, hard top convertible V12 Ferrari was gonna be permanently in our collection. This car was not spec'd and designed, and we didn't go to the lengths that we did ordering all the special add-ons to this car because we thought we were gonna sell it. But like I said, life's taken a different direction here, and it too must go. 48 hours from now, all three of these cars will be gone. They'll be pulling out of this warehouse for the last time. The 812 GTS, listen, it's what Ferrari does best. Front mid-engine V12, it's incredible just how far back that front engine is shoved back into that V12. Your feet are literally almost right even with where the engine's coming into the cabin of the car. So the balance of the car is really incredible, really incredible. 818 horsepower rear wheel drive. Rear wheel drive. That is an enormous amount of horsepower to just 2 rear tires. That's incredible. Lesson learned. I was pulling out of a dinner one evening with a buddy of mine. We were in that car. We'd been there for a couple hours. Tires were cold. I made a really stupid decision to put my foot off in it. Thank God it was a 5-lane wide road because we took all 5 lanes to bring that car and get it back under control. It's a very potent car to drive. It absolutely will bite you. Now, it's a 2021. It's nothing like the Carrera GT. It's got side slip control. It's got traction control. It's got stability control. It's got all the modern electronics and safety things to help you out. But with that being said, that's still an enormous amount of horsepower to 2 tires. So that car can absolutely be a handful if you try to punch it. It's really a car that when you drive, you don't punch that car. You don't punch that accelerator. You feed the power into that car. Get the power to the ground, and it really does reward you. And again, it's another car that does everything well. My wife and I have taken a lot of long-range trips in that car. I can throw 2 sets of golf clubs in the trunk, a weekend bag. We can head off to a 3 or 4 hour drive away. It sounds amazing. There's nothing like the sound of the Ferrari V12. There never will be anything different than that. One more reason why it's so hard to let this car go. V12s, we're at the end of the line. This is almost it. I was blown away that the new Revuelto coming out is going to have a natural aspirated V12. Thank the Lord above that's going to happen for one more generation. The 812 replacement's being announced. I believe this May is kind of what's being rumored, but we have no idea what that's going to look like. And we do not know if Ferrari's going to be able to find a way with all the EPA regulations and all that going on globally, if they're going to be able to produce a replacement for the 812 that actually has a natural aspirated V12. Everything's going turbo, smaller displacement, smaller engines, hybridization to assist with the power output with the cars. And yeah, you're getting incredible performance out of these cars. There's no doubt about that, right? When you're blending these twin turbo combustion engines with the hybridization systems, the performance is getting crazy. 1,000 horsepower, even just 5, 7, 8 years ago was outrageous, almost unheard of unless you got into something like a LaFerrari. But now 1,000 horsepower is becoming rather normal, which is absolutely insane. And so these systems are great, but the reality of it is they get faster and faster and faster. In my opinion, they lose more and more of their character. They lose more and more what makes them an individual experience. These cars, as you continue to own them, you continue to drive them, and you develop a true passion for them, you develop a passion for what that car, the emotions that car makes you feel when you drive it, right? And each one of these cars that I own, each and every one of them evokes a different emotion out of me. I feel differently when I drive it. There's different things about the car that I enjoy. And quite honestly, people ask me, hey, Louis, how do you decide which car you're going to drive that day? It completely depends upon my mood. And I know that sounds crazy, but each car, their personalities are that individually different. But as we get into newer, I feel like that individualization of character gets more and more muted. The cars, and it's not for bad reasons, right? The cars are getting better and better. The EPA emissions are getting better and better. The performance is getting better and better. Traction control, all the things that help a normal average driver to be able to get into a 1,000 horsepower car and not kill themselves or everyone around them. Though all those systems are getting better and better and better, and that's great. I think it's great for the advancement of the automobile. I think it's great for the advancement of safety. And we're getting cars that are, a 2.5 0 to 60 time is not that big a deal anymore. It's pretty common these days. Whereas the cars that we're talking about, and a lot of the other cars I'll be sharing with you, they're nowhere near as fast, but in my opinion, they're more fun to drive. And so the 812 GTS, it's right at the end of that, right? It's still got that natural aspirated V12. You can still get in the car. There's still a lot of driving characteristics. It still reminds me of some of the older front engine V12 Ferraris that I currently still own and some that I've owned in the past. But it's got a lot of the modernization where it's a very safe car to drive, unless it's on cold tires. Don't punch it on cold tires. So this car does a lot of great things. Hard top convertible. You put the top up, going out for a date night, it's incredibly comfortable. My wife can get in and out of it with high heels and a skirt or a dress on, no problem. It rides very, very comfortable. I get the thrill of listening to the V12 roaring away all the way to and from dinner, or we get it out on the open roads, really cut loose with that thing, let that V12 scream, drop the top, It's an incredible experience driving that car. Not only does it do so many things right, I think that car really does the history, the idea and the passion that Enzo Ferrari always had for that brand. I believe the 812 GTS really encompasses all that he had hoped to build when he was building that brand. So that being said, yeah, imagine loving something that much and having to let go of it. Not just one of them that you love that much, but we're letting go of 3 of them all at once. So as I said, usually this is kind of my happy place, and I'm excited to continue to share that with you guys. Today is the only time I've ever been inside this building and been really, really sad. I got a smile on my face almost out of, it's a painful smile. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of pain behind this smile, letting these 3 go. But I figured the best I could do is try to share with you guys why I own these cars, why I bought them, a little bit about my story behind these cars, to kind of pay homage to them, what they've meant to me, the memories that I've made with them that I'll continue to carry with me. You know, I share these cars, my family, you know, we're all a car family. They share the passion for these cars. I've made memories with my kids in these cars, my wife in these cars, with friends. One of my favorite things to do with all my cars is to share them with all my friends, to come by and they'll bring their kids, or friends that they have bring their kids. Of course, teenage boys love cars. I was no different. Obviously, that's where my passion started. It's awesome to share these cars, even if you're just out to lunch, you know, and you've got it parked out front or whatever, and there's always somebody asking, hey, do you mind if I take a picture? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, get in, let me take a picture of you inside these cars, and you're making an impact on someone's life. And that's what part of owning these cars and the passion for these cars is. You just never know whose life you might be inspiring just by that one moment. You know, when someone sees something like that and they go, wow, I want that for myself one day. I aspire to achieve success one day in life, that I might own something like that. And it could be just something as simple as them seeing that car one day, or maybe they come up and they talk to me and I open the doors for them. I let them get in there. I take a picture of them in the car that they get to leave with. That's something for them to look back on and go, wow, I want that to be my car one day. And I want to be like that guy that took the time out of his day to stop what he's doing and share that car with me, share that experience with me. And hopefully, you know, you get to touch somebody's life with these things. So these cars, they touch on a lot of passion points for me in a lot of different ways. I get a little emotional even thinking about it. But sharing them with the world, sharing them with my family, sharing them with my friends, and hopefully impacting another young man or young girl's life one day to inspire them is all part of the passion that I love of these cars. So with that, I wanted to share this with you guys. And until next time, the only thing I will say, obviously I'm selling these cars for a reason. There are 3 spots opened up now in the car collection. Who knows what's gonna happen next? Until next time.